All right, welcome back, Chelsea fans, to another episode of the London is Blue podcast. That's right, international break edition for the men, but the Chelsea women's team is continuing to play during this period, and they're continuing to play in the Champions League, which is a fun wrinkle. If you have missed that competition on the men's side for some time, I encourage you to watch the women's edition because we just started group stage play against Real Madrid at Stamford Bridge. Two big names under the lights and a ton of rain in London tonight. But look, joined by a wonderful friend of the pod, Ollie Glanville. Ollie, how are we doing this evening?
Yeah, not wet through because unlike usually I wasn't there this evening, but as always keeping abreast of the situation. So yeah, let's get into it.
So, of course, we are going to be covering Chelsea's first group stage match of the Champions League. Reminder that this is the last year of this format in the Champions League on the women's side. The men's side's obviously made the change to this league thing that sucks, in my opinion, personally, but like whatever. So, if you're into the standard Champions League format, this is our last year, baby. So enjoy it. Of course, quick calls to action. Thank you to our amazing community. You guys have done an incredible job talking about this match in Discord and such. So join Discord because it's a hell of a lot of fun. Look, Sam is producing the London is Blue Dispatch. There have been a couple of excellent newsletters recently. If you want to sign up for that, I can do that on Twitter or any other app. Of course, YouTube. We're putting out a lot more YouTube content. Dan put out an excellent video that YouTube decided wasn't going to hit their algorithm properly. So go give some love to that video, goddammit, because Dan did an incredible job on that one. And of course, any 5-star reviews would be helpful on the way to glory here. But 3-word match review. This was during the workday. I didn't have a ton of time to get any 3-word match review out on socials, Ollie, but we did get one from Chili on Discord, which said "Real beats Real," and that's kind of the right vibe, isn't it?
Yeah, I went along a pretty similar path there with keeping it Real. I think we saw some really nice signs in there, especially when we were kind of up in that energy bubble that we like to be, and then we kind of saw the reality of having a a very ill squad and not having played many games this season towards the back end. But a win is a win, and home games in Europe are for winning, Nick.
It's also for raining, so I want raining London wins. You can interpret raining however you please, but boy, it was wet there today. Obviously without like a full stadium, the DAZN broadcast brought in a ton of the rain sound. It sounded like someone was playing a snare drum up top, and it was clearly just devastatingly wet out there. A lot of slipping, even with the long spikes on. So, huge deluge of rain that happened during the middle of this match. But of course, we're playing in the Champions League. Chelsea are playing Real Madrid, two big names, and Chelsea win on the night 3-2. Goals from Shukanuskin in the second minute, Guro Reiten penalty in the 28th minute, and then Myra Ramirez finishing it off in the 53rd minute. Goals from Madrid, from Redondo in the 39th minute, and Caicedo in the 83rd minute. This was closer, I think, Ollie, than it should have been. Accurate?
Yeah, definitely. I think, at multiple points there, we could have kind of pulled ahead. We could have gone 4 or 5 by the end, really. But I think a combination of factors there with the kind of effort put in, the lack of game time, or the kind of match fitness, the sort of ragtag put togetherness of some of that squad, especially by the end when you saw at times Micah as a holding midfielder, which is we haven't seen since pre-season. And yeah, a couple of other things in there. But this is kind of how it always goes with Madrid. We kind of hold them at arm's length. We look like we're going to pull away. We look like we're going to absolutely destroy them. And then we just sit off, right? And they score a couple of very strange goals, very messy goals. And it's happened before, but as always happens against them, we win at home, Nick.
Indeed, we do. You gave me the note before we started recording here. It's 5 straight, I believe, against Madrid, and that's unbeaten. We have remained unbeaten against them at home, with some wins, some quality wins in here. And look, the lineup, Ollie, was something a little bit unexpected, because I think, just to contextualize the lineup a little bit, there was an illness, unspecified illness, that ran through the Chelsea team this week. Perhaps a blessing that we didn't play United at the weekend, now that we have the information that we have. So thanks to the FA, per usual. Because Aaron Cuthbert and Kat Mack were ruled out before the game. Hannah Hampton joined them, even though she was named into the starting lineup. And so Zachira Musovic had to come in for her. And I'm sure there were a few others that were feeling the impacts of said illness, because when you work together, train together, are in close proximity together all the time, when a bug goes through any sort of workplace, it does impact everybody. And so that's kind of, I think, a little bit of context here for the starting lineup, because anytime I look and there's not a lineup with Aaron Cuthbert in it, I'm like, why? What's going on? Is she hurt again? What's happening? So we obviously got Zachira Musovic in goal, Lucy Bronze at right back, Millie Bright and Natalie Bjorn resuming their partnership as center backs, Sandy Baltimore playing left back. More on that in a bit. Vika Kaptein and Chuka Nuskin largely as your two holding midfielders, with Lauren James playing the free whatever I want role, kind of as an 8, kind of as a 6. Got forward a bunch. Still trying to figure this one out in the Bon Pastor setup. Johanna Ritten-Cannerid and Myra Ramirez and Gura Wrighton up top. And subs, a ton of them, because I think, again, fitness and this bug kind of made it obvious that Chelsea were not peak fit in this game. Ashley Lawrence, Micah Amano, Meili Simpam, Oriane Jean-Francois, and Aggie Beaver-Jones are used subs. E. Paraset, Julia Bartel, and Hannah Hampton as unused subs. So I think Hannah would have been the emergency goalkeeper if something happened, and probably could have played, but I think was better off just on the bench, getting healthy for the weekend, which we will cover at the end, because we got a big one this weekend. So look, got a question straight out the gate for you, Ollie. Ghana Zagina on Discord says, I was like, hey, call for questions. I didn't want anything. He's like, well, who's going to be on? Because it affects my question. I was like, well, it's Ollie. So he sends an absolute rocket into the upper 90 here. Are we surprised by how experimental Sonia has been these first 3 games? We've seen some non-traditional groupings in midfield. Baltimore as a pseudo left back, left wing back sort of role, paired with Buchanan, Bjorn, Impom, 6 out and out attackers on the pitch at the end from the Palace game. Or subset question, is Emma still really running this team? Because it does feel very, very Emma Hayes-esque at the start of the season here. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I love that little disclaimer at the end. Yeah, has she really gone there? Is the shadow still looming? No, yeah. I am slightly surprised about the experimental side of it, but we have seen her do it before across her coaching career, and I also think it's something that she really has to do. I think a lot of the changes today were to do with the fact that players were completely out on their feet. It was great to see a couple of debuts today. Sondi left back, I think, is a really interesting one. It's kind of channeling that Victor Moses style Conte kind of marauding fullback / wingback. I thought at times today she made up the kind of left midfield role. We were almost playing 4 behind a 2 up front with Lauren and Myra there. And you could see when we were kind of confident and effortful, we had the energy there with us. You could see the danger that would pose, especially with Sondi going 1-on-1 and beating her marker a few times and winning us some kind of crucial free kicks down the left there as well. But overall, I do think it's a kind of it's a necessity more than like an ideal scenario for Sonia at this point, right? I think it's like a necessary creation here. But I was talking with Jesse during the game, and we were saying about how that this this setup feels like it's slightly compromised because of the injuries we have, right? Especially a
Yeah.
Neve, especially people coming back to full fitness, like a Lauren that will come to Admira. It's very similar to how in the men's side we're kind of compromised without Reese, right? It doesn't really make sense with that
Mm-hmm.
inverted right back. Here we've got that bombing on left back that isn't Neve Charles. So yeah, it's interesting to see how a compromise system is having to be built around that compromise. But yeah, I'm actually quite excited by it, Nick.
So I've heard like different things to start the season. I've heard, Bon Pastor is experimental for like the first third of the season and then really settles in to a starting lineup, and it's very hard to break into that starting lineup unless that the starter really goes off the boil or an injury happens or something to that effect. And then I also think there's the reality of what Chelsea is up against this season. Potentially a record number of matches, a I think a refreshed view on player safety due to all the injuries that are happening around the world and the increase in matches. I mean, it wasn't that long ago where Chelsea were playing like 20 games in a season on the women's side,
Yeah,
right? There weren't that many teams in the upper division, and we weren't in the Champions League, and we didn't have that great of a cup run. And so you really just don't play that much. And then you go from that to 50 matches,
for sure.
And World Cups because you're bringing in more talent and those players have more matches to play. And it becomes really unsustainable really quickly. I think, you're seeing cries on the men's side about this too. There's so many matches coming up. And so I think where she had it a little easier in France from a league perspective, perhaps, it's obviously not going to be the case. You follow up playing Real Madrid in the Champions League with playing Arsenal on Sunday at the Emirates, right? And you probably should have had Manchester United right before this, right? So, whereas I think maybe her original point of view on squad rotation is based on her experience, I think this squad will have to be very, very interchangeable this year. I don't think there's going to be just the first 11 and, some stragglers from the bench that get some minutes. Like, I think there are going to be full cell squad rotations, not unlike Emma did sometimes with Chelsea. But you're going to have to, because these players will have to be ready in case they're needed in the first 11. And
Yeah.
so, just something to think about here, because I've read a lot about her, but read a lot about her coaching style and how she views things, and I think she's going to have to adapt a little bit to the situation that we're in. And I think she will. I mean, she's obviously a very bright person. So let's take a quick ad break. We'll come back. We'll discuss a little bit about the Real Madrid team, the expectations heading into this match, the stats, the context, all sorts of fun stuff. But thanks to sponsors, and we'll be right back. All right, Ollie. You noted, because this is only our third match of the season, October 8th, and we only would have played 4 if we played Manchester United last weekend anyway. So it's really a young start to the season. But Real Madrid, kind of a refresh squad, have already played 5 matches, tied with Barcelona at the top of La Liga. Atletico Madrid up there on points, on 15 points. Obviously behind Barcelona in goal differential. I don't think that'll surprise anybody, just due to the talent gap between those two teams. But talk a little bit about this Real Madrid team, because, I think many consider our Champions League group to be the easiest group. And I think that's pretty obvious the way that it was set up. But this was always going to be the match out of this group that we were probably most worried about. Fair?
Yeah, I'd say so. Coupled with, obviously, given that it's in traditional Champions League fashion, we got the away leg as well, and no doubt they'll get
Mm-hmm.
another penalty that's like 10 yards outside the box, which I feel like in our penalty shout, we kind of got a bit of retribution for, because it was quite soft. But yeah, this Real Madrid team are changed kind of on and off the pitch. They've had some high profile departures. They've had some incomings to staff and players. I still feel like Linda Caicedo is probably, you know, their most dangerous talent, as she always has been against us. Just a precocious talent. She's very good, and
19.
yeah,
She's 19. You're
and
like, God.
and it's tough at that age to try and carry a squad. So yeah, so I mean, Real are much changed on and off the pitch. So there's been a refresh on staff and players, and they feel like a kind of more fitted out squad, a more kind of solid squad across the board. So quality wise, I wouldn't say they're still a match for us given how much quality we have, but you can see when we kind of stepped off, and when we didn't have as much energy, they kind of took advantage of that and came back into the game. Whereas a much lesser outfit, as perhaps they used to be, might not have been able to capitalize in that way. Yeah, so they're through five. They're 100% record, as you as you rightly pointed out. There's still 8 goals behind Barcelona because Barcelona, and that will be a very interesting game against Man City as we record tomorrow. So yeah, it will be really interesting to see how that turns. They haven't played each other, of course, either. So that's where the bar is.
The separation begins to happen. Yeah.
Right, exactly. That's that's when it kind of winds down the title challenge. But yeah, they are refreshed. I would say Linda Caicedo is still probably their best player, their most precocious talent. But at 19, it's tough to kind of carry that squad, so they needed to bring in some backup there. But as you say, it's definitely our hardest home game of the group, 100%. And we have to go away as well. So it'll be interesting to see how that one goes. But yeah, it's just interesting that they've played 8 games now, right? This is their 8th game of the season. This is our 3rd. So there's very much that difference in kind of match fitness, match sharpness. But despite all that, when we had the energy, we were very, very dominant. So actually, in terms of quality levels, I think we're still seeing that big gap there, and that's ultimately what told on the day. So yeah, I think that's kind of where we are at the moment, Nick.
And we welcomed an old friend back to the bridge today. Of course, Melly Lupols went to Real Madrid in the offseason, was back today and in the starting lineup for Real Madrid. And so, look, these sorts of things are becoming more and more of an occurrence for Chelsea. Where when we play Brighton later this year, we'll have a little unification with Frank Kirby, and it'll be fun. It'll be fun to see him. I think again, she was given a nice round of applause when she came off at the 75th minute or whatever it was. So nice to see that the fans still appreciate her talents. Look, the stats of this one are a little weird, Ollie, to be honest with you. Chelsea only have 8 shots to Real Madrid's 14. Real Madrid have more shots on target, 6-4. We have much more possession, 57-43, more passes, better pass accuracy. Same amount of fouls. They only get 1 yellow card. We have none. Not sure how. No red cards in this one. We have 4 offsides to their 0 and 6 corners to their 3. A bit of a weird one, right? Because I think you could argue for large stretches of this one, Chelsea are in control.
For sure.
Passing the ball along very casually. And then there were just a couple of 10-minute stretches in this game where Madrid really turned it on and felt like they could get back in the game.
Yeah, for sure. Like the back end of both halves, I think, kind of told in terms of that result, right? I think if you just watched the first 25, half an hour of both halves, you would see the kind of utter dominance we had, and actually what led to us stepping off. And going back to what I was saying at the beginning of the pod, I think it could have been 4 or 5-0. But that's not how we play Madrid for some reason. We just seem to think the job is done. And then at the end of each half, naturally, we kind of fall off. But it was even more pronounced this time, given the kind of illnesses, given the kind of absentees, and given the kind of gambles we had off the bench as well, with that kind of experimentation that the listener pointed out earlier. So, yeah, I think there are a kind of combination of factors there. But it could point to maybe we were very efficient on the night. I don't know if that's true, but I mean, we scored 1 from 2 shots on target second half, or 1 from 1 shot on target second half, and 2 from 2 shots on target first half, one of which is a penalty. So, I mean, if you want to argue for efficiency's sake, maybe there's that. But yeah, I feel like we could have maybe pushed that a little bit more, given us a bit more of a cushion. But ultimately, it didn't matter, Nick.
Yeah, with only 8 shots, you better be efficient because you're not giving yourself that many shot creating actions, obviously. And I think the team was a little disjointed today after not playing for 10 days, right? So we didn't play from Friday the 27th until today. Which any team would be a little bit rusty coming off that. Bone Pastor has some pretty good quotes after the game too. She said, "I'm happy with the result. It's important to start at home with 3 points against Real Madrid, the team with the highest ranking after us in the group. If you reflect on the performance, I want my teams to manage the game more in terms of the result. When I say manage, it's not about slowing the game down, but being smarter. Totally agree with that. When you begin the game with 2 goals and lead the goal with that, or lead with the goal difference, it's good to keep that result, especially because I felt we conceded 2 goals where we should have done much better. Credit to Real Madrid. They were pushing and were confident in the game, trying to score. They have a good team. At the end, it felt a little bit like the Aston Villa game, a 1-0 win, because we controlled, because I hoped we would have controlled more of the game. We were a bit nervous about Madrid getting back into it, so it's something we need to work on, but I'm not too worried about that. She also highlighted a lack of intensity in the first half. We scored the 2 goals, but after these 2 goals, we were not working as hard as I wanted the players to work on the pitch, especially when we had the ball. When we were walking to get the ball, and that's not enough. You make sure you put in more high intensity. If you want to pass the ball, you have to run a lot. And that is ultimately Ollie the way that she wants to play. She wants us to be a possession dominant team. Whereas under Emma Hayes, it was a lot more kind of 50-50, or even sometimes we would intentionally concede possession so we could play our very quick and excellent attackers on the break, which, is a strategy that I still find a lot of value in personally. But, that's not the way that Sonia wants to play. She wants to play with the ball. And I think her, demand is that the players work really, really hard off the ball, kind of a trademark of her Lyon teams.
Yeah, for sure. I think the kind of key word here is consistency, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think at times we showed some great counter pressing, and actually on the first goal, there was a breakaway for Madrid, and Yo-Yo nicks the ball back, drives forward. That's where the first goal comes from. It's like
Mm-hmm.
keeping up the pressure, right, from our own corner, having lost it. We regain the ball, carry it upfield instantly. We put the pressure on, Shuka heads it on to Garcia, and it goes in. And Shuka claims that, as she well should. But yeah, I think you see a lot with this team. When we're really pushing, it's very hard to stop us. And, at
Mm-hmm.
times Myra was rolling her marker. Lauren was even pressing. You saw Yo-Yo was kind of leading that press. Guru, really interestingly, was drifting infield in terms of that counter press. And it was very, very aggressive. But as we keep going back to, that takes a lot of effort, right? And I think
Mm-hmm.
the more we get into this season, the more you'll see that dialed in. And it will be really interesting to see, even between now and Saturday, how much we can kind of dial that in terms of the effort and keeping that up, keeping that consistency. Um, but yeah, I think that is going to be the real key here, is just keeping up that aggression, because ultimately aggression under Sonia equals momentum equals goals. And, it's obvious against a team like a Palace, for instance, where that quality deficit is so much more pronounced that you can go instantly to, 4, 5, 6, 7. But against a higher quality side, that consistency needs to be higher. And we need to be able to keep up that effort through to halftime, through to full time. And, it's all well and good resting on the ball, but walking around as basically 5 or 6 of the players on the pitch were doing at times, was probably down to the fact that we didn't have those energy levels. But also it invites a team like Real Madrid onto you, and ultimately probably costs us the first goal just through that kind of lack of closing down and making those mistakes. And certainly the second goal, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
saw the whole back line switching off, people calling offside when you got defenders on the line. Like there's lots to kind of think about. But it is a ragtag bunch at the moment, and they need to play games together. And this is only the third game of the season. So I'm quite happy with where we are right now.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that it's about establishing winning habits necessarily because this team has won a lot and they are seasoned winners. They have won almost everything there is to win over the last handful of years. But I do think it is about, Bon Pastor putting a real mark on this team early to go, that 3-2 win should have been 5-0. And if we would have done the things that we were supposed to do, we could have rested a hell of a lot easier at the end of this game instead of scrambling like we were a little bit.
Yeah,
And it's a lot easier to not be nervous when you're up 5-0. You know,
100%.
those feelings don't have to come into the game at all, and I think it's, again, it's not about like they already have winner mentality, they already have those habits, but I think she's gonna impress upon them that, like, you know, let's let's get this done early in the game, like especially against the teams that we should. Let's not wait till the second half. Let's put it away early. Let's give some of our folks who have been training with us the opportunity to play in the second half. Play a hard 60, Myra, for example, and then, we'll bring on someone else to finish it out. I think that's the sort of vibe that I'm hoping to see as the team kind of grows into the season. Um, because I mean, look, the talent is here. The buckets of talent on this team are insane. The signings that have been made are absolutely incredible. There's strength and depth, and we're going to only get better up front. You think about Sam Kerr coming back, like, holy shit! I mean, the team could be absolutely insane by the end of the year. So it's incredibly important for those who are kind of like in and amongst it right now to show the fight to get back into that place later on. Take our second ad break, our final ad break, I should say, and we'll be right back to talk through some of the big moments, the table, some trending up, trending down, and finish it out with a little look ahead to Arsenal on Saturday. Sorry. Thanks to the sponsors, and we'll be right back. All right, Ollie, you already did mention the goals, but I do just want to give those credence again. JRK just doing a ton of work. She was one of the hardest workers of this game. I think it's rightfully subbed because she put in a ton of effort. Shuka Nuskin doing a ton of work in this game in midfield and all over the place, really, as she's wont to do, just be in the right place at the right time. This is a first half where, at 2-0, you're kind of just like, man, is this gonna be one of those days where we put up 5 or 6 because we know how those look. I mean, we score after 2 minutes. I barely had a chance to blink and we were up a goal. And the energy and the effort at the beginning of this game was very notable between the two teams. Like there was a significant gap to me in the way that we were playing the ball, some of the long passes that we were playing out of midfield to open up space for the wingers. Sandy Baltimore getting up field on the left hand side regularly and doing some interchange. It was a pretty strong start to this one.
Yeah, for sure. I really like, we've graduated from just having Shuka as a Chaos 6 to now having her and Vika Captain as like the Chaos Pivot, as we're now
The
trademarking it,
chaos
right?
pivot
Yeah.
trademarked.
I just, I think their range of passing in there is great. Their physicality is great. Their kind of forward momentum is great, and they do end up in and around the box, like Vika against Palace assisted Guru, and then obviously Shuka today getting her goal as well. I just think it's a really nice like energy to have in there, definitely. And we did miss the kind of calming influence of one Erin Cuthbert, Nick, but I think there are kind of moments where this level of physicality alongside an Erin as well might be really interesting to run against the
Yeah.
team. And wouldn't that be a thing, huh?
All three of them in there at the same time. Ugh. Holy hell. That'd be difficult for anybody. That might be the old deploy against Barcelona trick when you want to win control back in the midfield. I mean, like, just to touch on the midfield because I think Captain was so impressive in preseason. Showed a lot of maturity. She's so young. Obviously has some decent football under her already. But I think there was a sequence in the first half where there were just, it would be Shukanuskin spraying a ball out to the right hand side and Captain doing the same out to the left. And Baltimore, JRK, everyone's just receiving these balls in tons of space and basically forcing Madrid to pick a side, right, that they want to defend. They're not going to be able to defend both. And that has to just be very confusing, if not debilitating, to think about if you're a defender, because you're like, surely the ball's not up. Oh, there it is. It's back over here now, and now we're chasing shadows, and now I got to worry about where LJ is at any given point. And I thought, whereas the front four were a little off it for me today in some respects. I do think that the midfield was physical. It worked. It tried. I think it combated well against Madrid's midfield, even though it's a very very young pairing, and Madrid have a little bit more experience in there for sure. I was very pleased with what I saw out of both of them today.
Yeah, for sure. And, just touching on, that the front four as well, I think you definitely saw the different levels of kind of output there in terms of energy, in terms of those who are ready, like a JRK who is now 100% a stalwart of our team. She's one of our first names on the team sheet now, right?
Yeah.
That JRK chop is here and it's loud and it's happening. And also Guru is kind of taking on this leadership mantle in this younger side as well, which is really lovely to see. It's kind of in the mold of the Marin, that kind of quiet leadership, or Guru Aurora, if you like. But yeah, and also obviously she can take penalties in the same way, just kind of perfectly in the corner. So that's a great thing to have. But yeah, I think with kind of Lauren and Myra as well, you saw they're not quite there yet. And you saw a couple of moments when they were there, and they showed their quality for the goal, right? Where they combined LJ with that first time cross, Myra with a great looping header. And then you saw again, like a minute afterwards, they're just like, oh, we can just do this on loop. But also you saw the other side of things where they're kind of drifting in and out, trying to find their role, trying to understand that kind of tactical output while also balancing their own energy levels. Because I think neither of them are anywhere near 100% right now. And you can definitely see that. But also that kind of freedom is really interesting to me, Nick.
Can I talk about Myra really quick before we get to Lauren? Because I think I do want to touch on Lauren. I'm really interested to see how she develops this season, Myra, because I think under the classic counterattack Emma Hayes, fast and furious sort of vibe that we would put out, she's unbelievably perfect for that system. She's able to make runs down the middle. She's able to command defenders 2 or 3 at a time, create space for other players. It's more difficult when you have a lot of the ball and you're trying to make the intricate pass, and you have to make a lot of unselfish runs, I should say. Try and do that in a much more compressed area. You have to play a little bit more aerially than maybe you're used to. She loves the ball at her feet. I just find that I think she's going to be utilized differently this year. And I think Sam, when she comes back, will be very much the same. Like, it's going to be a different attacking pattern for her. Do you get the same vibe?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of her best traits that I feel like we've really underutilized so far is on the half turn, right? You think of like a Nico Jackson at his best, or anyone you can think of a back to goal attacker with lots of pace, right? She can hold her player off. It's about making that decision if she wants the bounce pass and turn, or turn on her strongest side and just hold off the marker. And she can definitely do both. And I think we definitely saw today when she took on 3 players at once or whatever running through the middle. I think that's a side of her game that we're really going to benefit from. I also think the other part is the rotation. I thought it was really interesting that her and Lauren played up front today in that too, because that gives her someone to work off. It also means Yo-Yo can maybe drive inside and use her pace to underlap. But when we have all these threats collectively, all rotating in unison, it's very hard to mark. So I don't want to lose her kind of central threat, and we saw that with her goal, right? But I do think there will be space, especially against maybe a lower blocking side or a
Mhm.
side who's less likely to come forward, that she will have to rotate in and out. She will have to play those passes. And she has it in her game, right? You know, you think back to United away last season, the ball she puts through to Yo-Yo, you know, all these kind of aspects she has in her game. So I'm just really excited to see what the kind of next steps are for her. And that too, you know, you could put a Sam there, you can put an Aggie there, you can put whoever you like up front with Amira, and ultimately it's all sorts of danger, right? It's danger rap danger, Nick.
Yeah. Oh, 10 attackers, one goalkeeper. Let's do this. Let's put the formation out there. LJ is, I think, in a very similar kind of I'm feeling it out sort of place. I mean, dropped incredibly deep at times today, was almost a third midfielder for a large part of the first and second half. I think there was a switch at halftime that got her more of the ball in advanced areas. She's then able to start putting in wicked crosses across the face of goal. One of them gets converted. Two others very well could have in a very short sequence. So I think finding that sort of assist vibe again, maybe not being relied on for all the scoring, but really getting those quality balls into the area where the other dangerous attackers in our team can do something with them. You did see Cannerid come inside to allow for LJ to overlap on the right hand side. That's another wrinkle that could be involved, especially if it's Aggie out on the right hand side driving in. That you get a third striker in there if you can really work it. We're just inventing all sorts of new formations here. But LJ is someone that I've been a little bit concerned about from a fitness perspective for a while. But I think just how she fits into what Bombastor wants to do. Obviously, she's going to be a priority on the team sheet. Obviously, she has, uh, I think the most talent within this team, which is really saying something, by the way. And the team is ludicrously talented. Where do you feel like her best role is going to be in this, Ollie? Because I'm still not 100% sure because I don't think it's on the wing. I think it might be in the middle, but I think she might be misused there. Like, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I do think there is going to be an area of compromise here. I think maybe not as free as she was today and was against Palace, whereby she would drop so deep she's almost alongside the back line, because I think
Oh
that's
yeah.
just not, it's not ideal, right? Because that's not an area where she's dangerous, and it kind of limits the it limits the assists she can provide for one. I think what we need to dial in with Lauren is making sure she's in the area of most opportunity most of the time. And I think if she has a nice kind of cushion behind her, that she knows she can rely upon, which I think is part of the reason why we bought Lucy Bronze, to be honest, because they have a great relationship. I think we can kind of limit the the area to which she retreats into, and kind of push her much more into this kind of wide creation, inverted attacking role, right? So she doesn't necessarily have to be a second striker in an area that a lot of us think she is probably very dangerous in, but she does spend the majority of her time in and around the area, because she doesn't always have to go on a big mazy run and shoot. She has so many weapons in her locker. She
Yeah.
has the most dangerous delivery in the league, in my opinion, hands down, just because of the sheer power she can generate, the accuracy she can put on it, either foot. Like it's a
Mhm.
ridiculously useful weapon to have, and we have to use it. So I think that kind of wide creation role, where you saw her assist for Myra, the almost assist for Myra, and the almost assist for Guru, all from those wide areas, right? I think that's where she will suit best. Um, Whether she can do it right now and provide the counter pressing output, which I think Sonia wants, and how she did in the first half for about 25 minutes, I think that's the next step, right? Because I think part of part of Sonia playing LJ in a kind of more fluid, wide attacking role, allowing a few more touches than she'd otherwise want, is she wants to be able to trust her on the defensive side as well. And I did think you saw a kind of increase in effort in, especially in the early stages of the game. She was tracking back, she was counter pressing, but it did tail off. And I think with her energy levels rising the same way with Maya as well, Sonia will want to see that step up in terms of defensive output as well. And if she keeps that up, Sonia will allow her to play a more kind of free role, but not from behind the halfway line where it's kind of deleterious to us being victorious.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that because I don't. The team is not squared up when they are in formation, right? You obviously saw the shift over. Baltimore's much higher up on the left. It's essentially a back three. Lucy Bronze, thank God, did not press too high today because that would have been tough. That would have been a tough one. But I do think what that creates is this opportunity. If you have the back three, right, which gives you, I think, ample coverage with the chaos tens or the chaos pivot, whatever we're calling it in the midfield, you should have enough coverage coming back to be okay there. And it might allow the overlap relationship between her and JRK to develop a little bit more because they're hard enough to develop one-on-one. But I think if you create a consistent mismatch where you are calling resources to that side of the field to defend both of them, all it does is free up someone like Guro to occupy space with, eventually Niamh Charles coming in behind and doing what Niamh Charles can do. That might confuse a lot of teams. Might being the operative word, I think will confuse a lot of teams. I'm really intrigued by that because I think when there is a mismatch like that, Lauren will always find the right person. And sometimes the right person's going to be her. She'll rip from that side with her left foot, no problem. But I think she will more than likely find the right mismatch, whether it be Myra in the box, who might not have as much attention around her, or someone far post, or if it's JRK near. Like, I think it just opens up a bevy of options. Late run in from midfield, like she has more than enough tools to accomplish that. And I would agree with you. I think that feels the best right now because when I've seen her in the proper 10 role, I just don't know if that gets enough of her skills out of her because I think she wants to be left-footed most of the time, even though she can do both. And all three of those crosses that you mentioned were all right foot crosses, and they were all bangers. And so it might allow a little bit more of her whole skill to come out. So
Yeah, for sure. I think Sonia is all about asymmetry, right? And overloads. Going back to what we were saying earlier about the experimental side of things. And the reality is, with a fully fit squad, you cannot mark Lauren James out of a game because that involves leaving someone else free. And you can't, mark Yo-Yo out of the game or Maya out of the game. They have to make compromises on their side. And in order for the compromises on our side to work in terms of the defensive output, that means we have to step up on our side from a counter-pressing perspective.
We should mention the sloppy goals that we gave away in this one. And before I talk about the actual goals themselves, there was just some general, I think on set pieces, there was some sloppiness in the way that we were marking set pieces. I think there were just, it might have been the pitch, it might have been the rain, it might have just been rustiness. There could be a bevy of answers here as to why we were sloppy. But occasionally Madrid gets forward. They have an overload of their own. We fail to mark any of it. They have someone open in the box and they score. And it just, it invites a little bit of curiosity, I think, as to why that's happening when you have a back line of Bronze, Bright, Bjorn, and Baltimore. Wow, the four Bs, unbelievable in the back line. Sandy aside, those are three experienced defenders who looked a little bit out of sorts and maybe weren't getting as much help from the midfield at that point as they could have. Fair.
Yeah, I think especially on set pieces was probably the most worrisome aspect today, and actually
Mm.
through the season so far, I'd say, because we're known as a very strong set piece team going forward and back. Um, you just don't get very easy goals against us, or haven't done for a reasonable while. I think we went on a run of like 20 odd matches without conceding from a set piece under Emma. And then it went wrong for a bit and then corrected itself. But yeah, I think maybe the kind of marking aspects need to be looked at a bit, because it seems to rely on individuals not losing concentration, and ultimately the highest level. I'm not sure you can rely on that. I think we need something more of a safeguard, more of a fallback option, just to say, look, if it's in the front zone, Millie, you clear it. If it's in mid zone, Nat, that's yours, or Z today, or
Myra,
Hannah,
yeah.
whoever, just get it out of the box, right? Because if we're getting to situations whereby Lucy, who's one of our main markers tonight, is being dragged to the near post, out of position, being blocked off, and they get an easy knock on header 3 or 4 times. Like, that can't happen against stronger teams. Like,
Yeah.
teams like Barcelona, like Bundesliga, Frauen Bundesliga sides are going to look at that, especially with their power in the air, and say, look, we can absolutely use that. So I think that's something we need to tweak. Definitely, it may just be down to energy levels and concentration levels, but it doesn't really feel like that. It feels like there's been a little tweak that needs to be ironed out or retrained or whatever. So yeah, that's something I would definitely flag as something that's slightly worrisome.
Let's do a little trending up, trending down here. I have some options for up. Shook and Uskin being a first candidate on the list. Captain Myra, Millie. Who makes your list here? I think it was an odd performance, so it's kind of an odd list to be honest.
Yeah, like I think it's a much longer list when we are putting that output out, right? I think there's like 7 or 8 on that list when we're showing energy. I think we played some really nice stuff at times. I think there were some great individual moments. I think, to me, Shuka kind of carried our momentum at times today. Guru and Yo-Yo were kind of carrying the forward momentum at times. But yeah, I think in terms of like the downs, the whole team, man, like sank off, especially end of that first half. Like it felt like, to me, everyone lost 10, 15%. And in that time, I think certain individuals did stand up and maybe still tried to carry the threat a bit, but you can't really carry 7 or 8 individuals that aren't playing at level, right? And as I say, it always happens against Real Madrid, no matter the situation. But it felt particularly bad tonight because of everything we've talked about in terms of those energy levels, in terms of the illness, and in terms of just concentration levels, and that's what led to those goals, right, Nick?
Yeah, you have kind of the inverse happening from performances. Like I thought the back line was relatively good on the night, but then have a couple of crucial errors, right? That Millie makes an error and Lucy makes an error, and their night goes. I don't think it was Nat's strongest night as a center back necessarily. She was okay. Lauren by and large was not in the game very much until the second half. Gets in, provides an amazing assist, and sometimes that's all you need to keep it moving. And so it very interesting. Hard to make a list on this one. Who was your player of the match, though?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I think, given the nature of the scenario, I think I have to go for one of the chaos pivot, just because it feels, particularly uh apt for the situation. It was complete mess. I would probably go with Shook, just because of her starts to the season, her great new chant that she really loves, that she was dancing to at Palace in front of us. So yeah, I'd go with those. I would also call out, the couple of debutants today who came
Yes,
on.
please. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought Oriane. She came on, after a long time out with her ACL, and she kind of was a bit nervous at first, but then she kind of grew into the game. She made a couple of nice interceptions. She's clearly not on the same wavelength with her teammates just yet, but you can see the talent is there, and we know like the kind of level of talent she has and had pre-injury, and it's really exciting to see the level she could
Pro-
reach. With
progressive
Maelys, I think,
carries.
right.
Progressive carries. Oh my God, she looks like she can carry the ball the entire length of the field.
Oh yeah,
Orianne.
like if she can reach back to her level and even exceed that, because as she grows older and gets more training and more experience, I think it's an incredible talent to have in your hands. I think with Meili, she made actually a couple of really crucial interceptions, man. Like
Yeah,
towards the end of the game, like she's coming on to kind of shore up shop, and it's her debut in the Women's Champions League, and she's tall, she's kind of dominant, she's quite elegant on the ball, but she also knows
more
how to put in a
more
tackle.
mobile. She's more
Right,
mobile than the other two, which was noticeable because of the legs at that point and the fact that
right.
she was fresh and she's 19.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
right. So
she's young.
yeah, no, I was impressed with her too because yeah, there were a couple of like over the top breakaway balls that happened in the last like 10 minutes of the game, and she was there, kind of cutting across both of them, and I was like, yeah,
Yeah,
there you
by
go. Well,
herself, Nick. Like she read
yeah,
the pass, like especially with Fella at the back end of the game. Like it was just her. She was our defense, which is suboptimal. But she definitely stood up in that moment, and I think that's really great going forward. Just to have that kind of confidence in her that as a one-on-one defender, she can stand up like that.
welcome to Chelsea Football Club. Here's a ridiculously hard situation. Good luck. That's what we do. Yes. So congratulations to both Melis and Oriane for making their debut. More to come from both of them. Obviously, you're going to see them this season without a shadow of a doubt. What this result means in the table, Ollie, is that just because FC Twente put through a couple of goals on poor old Celtic, they are in first place in the group, 3 points, obviously with a win and a 2 goal diff. Chelsea on 3 points with a 1 goal diff because we couldn't avoid scrambling a couple there. Real Madrid in third on just -1 goal diff, and Celtic in fourth on a -2 goal diff. Very, very interesting when you look at this group because, again, Chelsea should cruise it. There's no doubt about it. And I don't feel too boastful in saying that. Twente and Real Madrid will be very, very interesting to watch. I think there's a lot of punch counter punch in both of those teams, and it will be very interesting to see if Real Madrid can excel. Because as Jesse put earlier on Twitter, thought we were poor, but Real Madrid never failed to amaze me. Year on year, they just remain mediocre, and that's that old Jesse Witt right there, carving through. Um, yeah, look, Chelsea's schedule upcoming, not the easiest that we've ever had.
No.
Would have been made harder by playing United at the weekend for sure. We travel to the Emirates on Saturday. Very early kick for us here in the US, 7:45 Central Time, 8:45 Eastern. So get up early for that one because this is, as Ollie and I both hate Arsenal more than any other team on the planet. This is one that we can't lose. We cannot lose to these guys. I hate losing to them. It is embarrassing and it sucks, and we shouldn't do it.
Especially after last year. We owe
Yeah,
them, Nick. Like, and then yeah, like Vika Kaptein's got a very early return, a
yeah.
very early homecoming. Like, she couldn't wish for quicker return, really.
The not at all rigged UEFA Champions League draw, Ollie, bringing storylines right to our front door. Yeah, we travel on Thursday, the 17th of October. Then we come back. We play Tottenham at home. Easy dub, of course, per usual. Wink. And then off to Everton, who drew with Arsenal. Yeah, maybe Arsenal is terrible, or maybe Everton are slightly improved, or maybe both things can be true. And so, yeah, look, that kind of rounds out the end of October into November. We obviously have an international break kind of mixed in there, but the season still very young. Gonna get into its adolescence here pretty quickly because the matches are going to pile up. The cups will be in full flow, and we're going to be playing a lot of difficult teams. I think you look at the Champions League, you look at the league. It's going to be a hard season. There are a lot of teams who have seemingly improved. Certainly thought Real Madrid were better today than maybe they were when we played them last year. So lots to do here. Final verdict from you, Ali, as we head into the Emirates on Saturday.
Yeah, like home games in Europe are for winning, Nick, and I think that's the kind of main take from this is that we did enough. We probably did more than enough at times, and then it got a bit nervous at the end, but we definitely did enough. And now the season starts. Like now it feels like the season really kicks off and we're into it. And if we can get through this next run of games, especially by kicking things off in the best possible way on Saturday, which feels like a non-negotiable to me sitting here in North London, Nick. Um, like as long as we start that way and kick on, it's going to be a really exciting time to be a Chelsea women's fan.
Well, and think if you're Arsenal and Chelsea go in and win at the Emirates, your season is going to be almost impossible to claw back. You've already dropped points this season. It's a tight league. City are going to be pretty good again. United, you don't really know kind of how they're going to function at any given time. It's due to their infrastructure, but they could be all right. So, yeah, if Chelsea go in and beat Arsenal and they drop 5 points early in the season, yeeks, look out.
Yeah, I want to find out what that looks like, Nick.
Sure do, Ollie. Sure do. Let's crack a beer if that happens. Let's do one of those. But look, thanks for tuning in midweek. International break on the men's side. Definitely not an international break on the women's side. Champions League, Emirates on Saturday. Lots going on. But until next time, Chelsea fans, you know what to do. Keep the blue flag flying high.